Okay, Bismillah, wassalatu wassalam ala Rasulillah. I want to welcome everyone to day 2 of the workshop. Thanks for coming. Today we're going to be discussing atheism and materialism. And as we all might be aware or not be aware, secularism is spreading globally. I mean, I was shocked to find out just 2 weeks ago that Sweden, 90% atheist, the population. That's insane. Europe is completely secular. Secularism is even spreading in the Arab world. So I'll have to say that this topic is very important. You know, a lot of us might probably look at, okay, no, there are more Christians in the world, there are more Hindus in the world. Everyone tends to forget about atheists, secularists, and this topic. Today's discussion is not only going to help you in having a dialogue with an atheist, but also having a dialogue with someone who lives his life like an atheist. First thing that we're going to do is first define what an atheist is, what a materialist is. And I'm not undermining your intelligence by doing this, just that most people tend to not know what an atheist really is. An atheist is one who denies the existence of God and is not to be confused with an agnostic. An atheist is making the assertion God does not exist. That is as much of a claim to knowledge as someone that says God does exist. An agnostic is someone that says, I don't know if God exists. Now, there are two types of agnostics. You have one agnostic who's probably a more hardcore agnostic. He would say, there is no way you could know that God exists. That's a claim to knowledge. If someone makes a claim to knowledge, he's required to offer evidence for that claim. So don't get fooled by these atheists when they say, well, the burden of proof is not on me, it's on you. No, but if you're making the claim that God does not exist, that's a claim to knowledge which you have to prove. Similarly, if the agnostic says, there is no way we could know that God exists, that's also a claim to knowledge, and he's required to offer proof for that claim. The more softer kind of agnostic is someone that says, I just simply don't know. It's a claim of ignorance. He's not making a claim to knowledge, he's making a claim to ignorance. I just simply do not know. So it's important to note that, because sometimes, I remember I went to someone's house in the Springs around 2 years ago, and they told me he was an atheist, and they wanted someone to talk to him. I went to his house, and he said he was an atheist, and I was talking to him just 5 minutes into the discussion. He said, well, I'm not saying that God does not exist, I'm just saying I don't know if he exists. I don't see the evidence. I'm like, you don't even know what you are. You're an agnostic. You're not an atheist. So a lot of these people don't even know what they are, and they claim to be so intelligent. What's a materialist? A materialist is one who holds the belief of materialism, which is that form of physicalism which holds that the only thing that can truly be said to exist is matter. That fundamentally all things are composed of material and all phenomena are the result of material interactions. The atheist's difficult stance. Before you enter into a discussion with an atheist, or with an agnostic, or with a materialist, is first of all, let him be aware, make him aware of the difficult stance that he is in. Just as Muslims might have their Quran and Sunnah, these people have their science and philosophy. That's how they live their lives. They live by these two things. Now, what is science? First, let's define what science is. Science is a branch of knowledge requiring systematic study and method, especially dealing with substances, life, and natural laws. Now, this is where his difficult stance comes. If science cannot go beyond the natural world, then how can it disprove the natural world? The supernatural world, sorry. So you see, how can he disprove the existence of God, whom we claim to be supernatural? Science cannot go beyond what is natural. So how do you know what is outside of the natural world? How can you use science to disprove that God does not exist? You're using the wrong tool. It's like you're trying to use a thermometer to measure distance, which can't be done. So first thing is that you make them understand you can't disprove the existence of God using science. Secondly, scientific theories are in a constant state of change. Don't confuse that with the facts, but theories are in a constant state of change. And a lot of them live their lives believing in science, whatever science tells them, and a lot of it are theories, which are flexible. They're not stable. So that shows that his belief is not based on something which is firm and stable, but flexible and weak. Atheists refute themselves when they say we should only believe in what is scientifically proven. They say, I only believe in what my five senses could tell me. I only believe what science could tell me. But can science really tell us about all truth in the world? Science could tell you if using a human being in an experiment as a guinea pig will be effective or not. But science can't tell you if it is ethical or not. Science could tell you how a mountain formed, but science can't tell you if the mountain is beautiful. You see, there are different kinds of truths in the world. You have ethical truths, truths about morality. You have aesthetic truths, which is the study of beauty. Science cannot tell us this. Science can't tell you if something is moral or immoral. Science is what they call amoral. A-M-O-R-A-L. Amoral. Without morals. Science is not immoral, it is amoral. What's the difference? I can't say that my laptop is immoral. Okay, it's not a moral agent. To say that someone or something is immoral is to say that that person is morally corrupted. But this could only be given to someone who is a moral agent. A laptop cannot be moral or immoral. It is amoral. Similarly, science is amoral. It has nothing to do with moral values. Therefore, if science is not the only tool that we could use to discover truth in life, then why am I bound or obliged to use science to prove the existence of God, let's say? So he's not being consistent in his methodology, because we know that science is not the only tool that we could use to discover all truth. Let's go to the philosophical aspect of it. What's philosophy? Philosophy is the study of the most fundamental and general concepts and principles involved in thought, action, and reality. Now this is where the limitation comes. Philosophy can only understand the limited. So how can you use philosophy to disprove the existence of God? Now, you have to remember that, what's philosophy? I mean, as we said, it's the study of life, action, and thought. But this originates from human thought. And we all know that human beings are limited. We're finite. We're limited beings, which also means that our thoughts and actions are limited. So there's a limit to how much we could understand and comprehend. So if our limited thoughts can only understand what we can perceive, which can only be limited, then how could we really understand the infinite, understand God? The point I'm trying to make here is this, is that many atheists would come up to you and say, if God did exist, then we should see this and that and that and that. Yeah, but how do you know that? Your thoughts are limited. You don't understand the unlimited. So how do you know that you should expect to see this and that and that and that if the unlimited were to exist? We're going to talk more about the problem of evil, but I want you to put this in your head, that if he says, well, if God did exist, then we shouldn't see evil in the world. Well, says who? I mean, your thoughts are so limited, you don't understand the unlimited. You don't know how the unlimited behaves. So who are you to make a claim like that? So we're going to get more into the problem of evil, but first thing to know is that we said science is limited and philosophy is limited. And you can't use these two things to disprove the existence of God. But these are the only two things that the atheist lives by. So that shows that his position is very difficult. Because as an atheist, he is supposed to disprove the existence of God. But the two things that he lives by, science and philosophy, can't do that for him. So he's in a tough spot from the very beginning. Now, we're going to talk about the arguments for the existence of God. I mean, There are so many arguments for the existence of God. I'm going to cover 6 of them today. Now, where did I get these arguments from? Well, a lot of them are from Muslim philosophers. A lot of them are from Christian philosophers. I got many of these arguments from Christians themselves. A lot of Christian philosophers have actually taken these arguments from Muslim philosophers, and they just modified it in a way to make it more clearer to the people. But at the end of the day, what I wanted to ensure is to make sure that all of these are Islamic arguments. So even though I might have taken this from a Christian philosopher, I'm going to show you throughout the debate that this is actually an Islamic argument at the end of the day. Now, these arguments could be scientific and philosophical. Just to let you guys know, me personally, I don't believe in the existence of God mainly because of these arguments. I believe in the existence of God mainly because of the evidence for Islam. So it's like hitting 2 birds with 1 stone. The evidence for Islam proves that Islam is true, and obviously the existence of God. However, the reason why I think it would be useful to go further into philosophy a little bit is to show that you could even beat the atheist at his own game, at his own field, which he takes a lot of pride in. So the 6 arguments that we're going to give today is, first, the Kalam cosmological argument, which talks about the origin of the universe. Where did it come from? The argument from free agency, to show that the cause of the universe has to be a cause that has a free will, has to be a personal agent. The argument from information, where did information come from? Even if you could explain where matter came from, that doesn't mean that you could explain where information came from. Fourth, the argument from design. Why is everything so perfect in the universe? You know, if the sun was just a little bit closer to the earth, we'll all burn up. Why is everything so meticulously designed in the universe? Fifth, argument from morality. Where did we get our moral values from? And sixth, the argument from instinct. Why do we behave the way we behave? And I'm going to show you guys how all of this could serve as arguments for the existence of God. I'm going to talk for around 45 minutes to an hour, and then we're going to take a little break for like 15 to 20 minutes, and then we're going to come back and have an interactive session where I'm going to assign questions to you guys, and you'll attempt to answer it. So just to let you know what the plan for the day is. Okay, inshallah. Okay. All right, we're going to start with the Kalam cosmological argument. Just to give you a little quick brief history on what this argument is. First, the argument was originally called the cosmological argument. What that argument said was, everything that exists has a cause. The universe exists, therefore the universe has a cause. But everyone could see the weakness in this argument, because God exists. So that means God also has a cause too, according to your argument. So what the Muslim philosophers have done, and Muslim philosophers in Arabic usually have the title Ahlul Kalam, meaning they practice ilm al-kalam, the study of philosophy, rhetorical science. They've taken the argument and they modified it. So now this kind of argument is what we call argument from inference, where you will have assumptions or premises, and you will infer a conclusion from these assumptions. And your conclusion would be true if you've proven your assumptions to be true. Assumptions?
Okay.
All right. Okay. So when I say premise, I mean assumption. Okay. Premise 1: whatever begins to exist has a cause. Premise 2: the universe began to exist. Conclusion: the universe has a cause. In order for you to reach your conclusion successfully, you have to prove the first 2 points. So that's the main thing that we'll have to do here. Whatever begins to exist has a cause. Premise 2, the universe began to exist. Conclusion will come by itself. So now, whatever begins to exist has a cause. Now, let's ignore the first definition. Let me just go to the second definition. The material cause is a philosophical concept proposed by Aristotle, which describes the material out of which something is composed. For example, a set of falling dominoes. I think all of us know what cause and effect is. Now, just to give an example regarding the dominoes. For example, you have a set of falling dominoes. Okay? Now, what made the third domino fall? The second domino that hit it. What made the second domino fall? The first one that hit it. What made the first domino fall? Well, obviously it can't be a domino, all right? Because then it won't be the first domino. So all of us could probably imagine someone's finger just ticking the first domino. So the cause of the fall of the dominoes was something that was not a domino. Similarly, what is the cause of the universe? What made the natural world come into existence? Well, it can't be something which is natural. Whatever made the natural world come into existence, to come into effect, cannot in and of itself be natural, because the cause and effect cannot be of the same nature. So whatever made the natural world, this universe, come into existence, must be something which is supernatural. It can't follow any other way. Now, I think all of us know that this is common sense, that something cannot come from nothing. Being cannot come from non-being. But obviously, the atheists are going to get desperate and try to respond back to you. Now, what they're going to say is this. Yes, we agree that something cannot come from nothing. But this only applies to the universe, to what is inside the universe. We know that inside the universe, for example, as I'm speaking, a tiger is not going to pop out and eat me up right now, right? We know that. This is the law of nature. But they say, the atheists, yeah, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it applies to the universe itself, only to things inside the universe. The way to respond back to this is to say, when we say whatever begins to exist has a cause, we're not talking about a physical law which only applies inside the universe, like the law of gravitation, for example. We're talking about a metaphysical law. The study of metaphysics is a branch in philosophy which studies reality beyond science. So to say that something comes from nothing is logically absurd no matter what. That will apply to anything. And to say that the universe popped into existence out of nothing is in and of itself a miracle. But atheists don't believe in miracles. So how can they utter such a statement like that? So I think that most atheists that you're going to talk to are not going to dispute with you regarding this issue. Because I think if you're going to have a discussion with him on that, he's the one that's not going to look very intelligent saying, yeah, something could come out of nothing. And also you should think about it. What is more ridiculous to imagine? Let's say, for example, I come and tell you, you see the oxygen and the carbon dioxide in the air, they mixed together and a horse came out. No one's going to believe that. But someone else says there was absolutely nothing, no oxygen, no carbon dioxide, nothing, and then a horse came out. Which is more or less ridiculous. The one about the carbon dioxide and oxygen. Because at least you could say it came from something. But in the other situation, you're saying absolutely nothing, something came from it. So the atheist argument here would be very weak, and most of them are not going to argue back on this point. And just to show that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's trying to talk to the people. It's like, were they created by nothing? Or were they themselves the creators? Did they create themselves? How can something bring itself into existence? Or did they create the heavens and the earth? Nay, but they are not sure. Okay. Now what they're going to dispute with you is whether the universe did begin to exist. Now you're going to see through a lot of the slides, a lot of words, a lot of statements. I'm not going to read all of these out today. Because we're going to give you these PowerPoints later, you're going to benefit from all the quotations and the references. So I'm just going to say the essential parts today. Now, the universe began to exist, and let me just quote a few things. Fred Hoyle, he's an astrophysicist. He says, as you go back in time, You reach a point at which the universe was shrunk down to nothing at all. And Stephen Hawking, he's one of the most famous cosmologists who studied the origin of the universe. But then he said, almost everyone now believes that the universe and time itself had a beginning at the Big Bang. The most widely accepted theory of the origin of the universe today is the Big Bang theory. And the Big Bang theory basically states that the universe was created around 15 billion years ago. And that today, and we can see that the universe is expanding. And what that seems to indicate is that if it was expanding, then there must have been a point where it began to expand from. And they would say that the very point where it began to expand is called the point of the singularity. And before that point, there was absolute nothing. There was no matter, there was no energy, there was no space, and there was no time itself. The most widely accepted theory today is the Big Bang theory. Now, a lot of people in the past 60 years tried to come up with theories to refute the Big Bang theory. Because the Big Bang theory has a very strong implication. What is that implication? That the universe is not eternal. That the universe began at a certain point in time and it is created. So if it is created, then that would imply a creator. So this gave many atheists a very difficult time. And a lot of them tried to come up with theories to refute the Big Bang theory. Many theories came up. I'm not going to go through them because I know it's not science class, but a lot of models that they came up with is a steady state model, which has been refuted, the oscillating model, which has been refuted, and the vacuum fluctuation model. And the interesting thing is that as these models were disproven, at the same time it showed more evidence that the Big Bang theory is a stronger theory to believe in. So science today, the best of science today, tells us that the universe is not eternal, that the universe is created and began at a certain point in time. So if the atheist really holds science in high regards, then that should mean something to him. Now, let's move on to the second argument. Is it just enough to say, okay, fine, so that shows that the universe had a cause? Well, he's going to say, well, how do you know that cause is God? That's where you have to delve in a little bit further. Now, the second argument that I'm going to put forth is that whatever caused the universe, it must have been a personal being that had free will, and not some mechanically, not some mechanical object which is mindless. So how's the argument going to be? Premise one: the universe was brought into being either by a personal agent with free will, or an impersonal agent with no free will. Premise two, which is what we're going to argue: the universe could not have been brought into being by an impersonal agent with no free will. In conclusion, the universe was brought into being by a personal agent with free will. This doesn't take science, it just takes a little thought to understand.
What do you mean by a free agent?
A free agent is the universe is an effect. It came into existence. Something must have caused it to come into effect. Okay? Now, what we want to know is, what is that cause? Was that cause a bunch of subatomic particles just wandering mindlessly and suddenly it just made the universe come into existence? Or was the cause of the universe someone who had a free will and decided at some point in time and said, okay, I want the universe to be created?
What's the free will?
Free will, irada. Okay? Someone has that free will, capability to decide that the universe comes into being. Well, it's basically common sense. The universe cannot have an unchanging impersonal cause if the effect popped into being at a certain point in time. In order for the effect to not be eternal, just like its cause, the cause must have a free will. So let's say whatever caused the universe was the same all the time, from eternity. Nothing changed. Well, if nothing changed, then what made the universe come into existence at a certain point in time? If nothing changed, then that means the universe should have also existed from eternity. But what this shows, because we've just spoken about that the strongest scientific theory shows that the universe did come into existence at a certain point in time, which shows that the cause of the universe decided at some point for the universe to come into existence. The significance of this argument is that it shows that whatever caused the universe to come into existence is a personal agent. It has a free will. It's not some mindless creature. This is a very strong argument for the existence of God. And maybe to give you an example to better understand the argument is by giving a simple analogy. Suppose the cause of water's freezing is the temperature being below 0 degrees centigrade. Water freezes when the temperature is below 0 degrees Celsius. If the temperature was below 0 degrees Celsius from eternity, then any water that was around should be frozen from eternity. It would be impossible for the temperature to be below 0 from eternity, yet the water just began to freeze only 15 billion years ago, which is the analogy to the universe. How can you have an eternal cause but a temporal effect unless the cause was a free agent? So that shows that the cause of the universe, at some point, something changed. He decided, he made a will that the universe comes at that particular point. If the cause was the same, then why should we believe that the universe came into existence at a certain point in time? Okay, and just to show Allah's free, how Allah indicates in the Quran how He has free will, it is He who has created the heavens and the earth in truth. And on the day of resurrection He will say, be, and it shall become. That indicates His free will. When Allah says be, that's His irada. That's when He makes something come into being. It's not that Allah is doing absolutely nothing. He's just a mindless object. If He was, then we shouldn't expect to see creation. But because Allah is expressing and implementing His will to create, that's why we have a creation. So that shows that the cause has a will. It is not some mindless object. The argument from information. Where does information come from? Well, the DNA of a single bacterium contains as much information as a 1,000-page book. And imagine, we have millions of bacteria in our body. So imagine how much information that is. Where did that information come from? Well, an evolutionist, Dr. Douglas R. Hofstadter of Indiana University, he states his despair in the face of this question. How did the genetic code, along with the mechanisms for its translation, originate? For the moment, we'll have to content ourselves with a sense of wonder and awe rather than with an answer. We just simply don't know where information in the universe came from. Now, for example, you guys are writing your information down on your notebooks. Where did the paper come from? Well, we can know where paper came from. You know, it probably came from the trees, and then it went to the manufacturing company, etc., and then you got paper. Where did the ink on your notebook come from? Well, a bunch of people took a bunch of chemicals, they made ink, and you got your pen, and you wrote it on the notebook. But the information in the notebook, what you're writing right now, the information on the book, where did it come from? Huh? What has been said? Sorry? I'm just asking right now, the information in your notebook, where did it come from? It came from your mind, it came from your intelligence. It didn't come from the pen. It came from your head. You were thinking about something. You're writing down what I'm talking about right now. It came from your mind. It came from your intelligence. It didn't come from a material object. It came from a mind, an intelligent being. Now, let's look at a few examples here. On that side, you have a Tomahawk cruise missile. You have plenty of them being shot into Iraq, okay? And on the left side, you have a mutton bird. Now, a Tomahawk cruise missile, it's called a smart guided missile, okay? And the reason why they called it that is because it could perfectly hit its target. How is it able to do that? Because it obtains information, it obtains data from multiple sensors. It will obtain it from the ships, from the aircraft, from the people at the radar station, and they will feed in data into this missile so that it would be able to perfectly hit its target. So obviously this information came from somewhere, from intelligent beings, from a mind. Now, what's the example of the mutton bird? A mutton bird is a seabird, and every year it migrates from Australia to the US. And it flies over 25,000 kilometers every year when it wants to travel from Australia to the US. And the journey takes around 6 months. Now, what it does is that when it travels, it leaves behind its 3-month-old babies. And then 2 weeks after it travels, its little babies will follow it, taking the same exact directions and routes that its parents took. And then they will meet at the same spot at the destination in America, and then the parents and its siblings will be together. Now, the question is this: where did that information inside that bird come from?
Travel agencies.
No travel agencies. Okay, there's no radars. Okay, guys, take a right, take a left now, 0 degrees. Where did that information come from? Where did that bird have that ability to obtain this information? So let's go further back to the origin of the universe. We know as the universe came into existence, where did DNA come from? Where did everything come from? So even if they could answer the question, yeah, matter came from this, that doesn't mean you answered where information came from. So I think it's a pretty good argument. Argument from design. Okay, first premise. The fine-tuning, and when I say fine-tuning, I'm talking about explicit design, perfect design. The fine-tuning of the initial conditions of the universe is either due to physical necessity, chance, or design. Premise 2, which is what we're going to argue, it is not due to physical necessity or chance. Conclusion, therefore it is due to design. Meaning, when the Big Bang says that explosion happened at the singularity point, why, and what scientists have said, which is what we're going to show, is that it must have been so meticulous, so carefully designed, that if the explosion were to happen in any other way, you will not have a life-permitting universe. So now the question that we're asking is that, why did it happen like that? It can only be due to 3 reasons. Either someone designed it like that, or just by coincidence it happened, or it was necessary that the explosion happened like that. Well, is it due to physical necessity? Necessity, darura. No daruri, no universe like that, right? We'll say no. No natural laws existed before the creation of the universe. Natural laws came into existence after the creation of the universe. Therefore, we cannot say that a law existed before the creation of the universe, which forced the universe to be created the way it is. Now, when I say something is a necessity, if I say, okay, if I let go of this paper, it's going to drop. It's necessary. Why? Because there's a law that says so, the law of gravitation. Now, we all know that these laws only exist in the universe. These are natural laws that only exist in the natural world. But before the universe was created, there were no laws. So you can't say it was necessary that the universe began in this way, because there was no law at that time which said it must be this way. Laws, natural laws, only came into existence after the universe was created. So if someone told you, well, it was necessary that the universe became the way it is. No. Why? What laws were there that said that it must have been created this way? Laws only came after the creation of the universe. So to say it's a physical necessity is not a strong argument. Is it due to chance? Fred Hoyle, in Astrophysics, he said that the chance that higher life forms might have emerged in this way is comparable to the chance that a tornado sweeping through a junkyard might assemble a Boeing 747 from the materials therein. So imagine you have a junkyard and a tornado came in, and then after the tornado finished its sweeping through, you got a perfect Boeing 747 airplane, which is impossible. Socrates, a Greek philosopher, he said, "This world appears in such a manner which gives no possibility to coincidence." And if you just read you don't need philosophers to tell you this. You just simply know that you just go outside and you look at the world, you know that everything is so perfectly designed, it could not have been by coincidence.
But this is also useful because the atheists are relying upon philosophy. So and they presume that all philosophers, or maybe the majority of them, and all scientists are atheists. So in order to show them that this is incorrect, and there were some great philosophers and great scientists who were not atheists, this itself will make him
you'll be committing the fallacy of appeal to authority. Okay? Because not all philosophers say this. So they'll just say the arguments of my philosophers are stronger than yours. So what you're supposed to do is show that the arguments of these philosophers are stronger than theirs.
But this will at least,
at least to show at least to show not all specialists in this field, which you take pride in, agree with you. But that won't be enough. But it would be useful to point that out. As a supportive argument. Okay. All right. And all of these are just more quotations. I'm just providing you guys with these notes. It's just better to have more quotations of people just talking about how ridiculous it is that this could have been just by chance. So for example, Stephen Hawking, the famous astrophysicist, he said, if the rate of expansion 1 second after the Big Bang had been smaller by even 1 part in 100,000 million, the universe would have recollapsed before it ever reached the present state. So the chances that that this, the probabilities are just so ridiculously high. But to say that we are here by chance, by coincidence, is absolutely absurd. And these are just more quotations. Argument, okay, and just to show that this is a Quranic argument, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, in the creation of the heavens and the earth, and the alternation of the night and day, and the ships which sail the seas to people's benefit, and the water which Allah sends down from the sky, by which He brings the earth to life when it was dead, and scatters about in it creatures of every kind, and the varying direction of the winds, and the clouds subservient between heaven and earth, these are signs for people who use their intellect. He who has created 7 heavens in full harmony with one another, no incongruity will you see in the creation of the Most Gracious. And turn your vision upon it once more. Can you see any flaw? Yeah, turn your vision upon it again and yet again, and your vision will fall back upon you, dazzled and truly defeated. Just look at all these signs around you, and just ask, where did it all come from? Did someone design this, or was it just by coincidence? And as the Quran says, your vision will fall back upon you, dazzled and truly defeated. Now, how will they try to refute this argument? How are they going to try to reply back to you and say, no, this universe is not by design? I saw 3 arguments. First one, they'll say, the universe should have been designed better. Okay, you're saying that God designed the universe. Well, how come we get sick? Why do people get sick? If God is such a perfect creator, He should have created me in a way in which I never get sick, or in a way in which I never get old, and remain young and healthy. Second response, maybe there's more than one God or designer. Number 3, evolution accounts for the appearance of design in biological organisms. Now, as for the first argument, the universe should have been designed better. This is a weak argument, because first of all, that doesn't change the idea that the universe is designed. If I say a Ferrari is designed better than a Honda, that doesn't change the fact that the Honda is still designed. Just because you're saying something could have been designed better, that doesn't mean that it is not designed. Secondly, no Muslim, no Christian, no Jew, no one that I know who follows a religion says that God created the universe with no defects. What we say is that God created the universe perfect for its purpose in life. So even if you have a human being that comes out physically deformed, someone who comes out deaf and blind, I'll still say God created him perfectly. But what do I mean by that? I mean perfectly for its purpose in this life. So we don't believe, anyways, that the universe should have been created perfectly. So you see, that takes us back to yesterday. He's attacking straw man. He's attacking something which we don't even believe or claim. We're not saying that the universe is absolutely perfect. We're not saying that God intended to do it, but he failed. We're just saying that God created the universe for a purpose, and this is the way we are. So this is a weak argument. Secondly, maybe there's more than one God or designer. Remember we talked yesterday about red herring, when someone would throw an argument to divert away. He would say something to divert away from the issue. Now here, he's saying maybe there's more than one God or designer. You're an atheist. You don't believe in any God or designer. So this has nothing to do with the discussion. I'm not proving monotheism to you over here. I'm proving to you that God does exist. So you can't throw this argument because atheists do not believe in any God whatsoever. And the Quran also refutes polytheism. Allah said, had there been therein in the heavens and the earth gods besides Allah, then verily both the heavens and the earth would have been ruined. Glorified be Allah, the Lord of the throne. High is he above what they attribute to him. In another verse he says, no son did Allah beget, nor is there any God along with him. If there had been other gods, behold, each God would have taken away what he had created, and some would have tried to overcome others. Glorified be Allah above all that they attribute to him. So what Allah is saying here is that if there was more than one God, then these gods would be fighting with each other. They will not be working in perfect harmony with one another. Now, someone might say, yeah, but isn't it possible that they could cooperate with each other? You know, I'll be the god of agriculture, you could be the god of lightning. But if with that sort of reasoning, a god of agriculture only is not God by definition. God by definition controls everything. Not only I'm the god of the sea and you're the god of the land. No, God is God of the sea and of the land. So it doesn't make sense to say God of agriculture, God of food, God of this and that, because God by definition implies omnipotence over all. And if you had more than one God who is omnipotent, who's supposed to be omnipotent over all, then they'll be fighting with each other, just as the Quran says.
Just a question. How did we get that definition of God? And this is a question that is liable to be asked by any atheist.
Well, I mean, anyone could just make up a definition, right? Anyone could just say, well, I define God as this, and I don't believe in him. Okay, congratulations, me too. You know, I believe in the Islamic concept of God. And that's why you're going to see a problem that maybe many atheists, especially from the West, that you would talk to, they would disbelieve in a God that you don't even believe in. Maybe they might disbelieve in the Christian concept of God. A lot of them find it illogical how the incarnation happened, how someone could be God and man at the same time. But be like, okay, I'm not against you. I also don't believe in that. Okay, my understanding of God is that he is omnipotent, he is one, and he controls all things. I am trying to prove that this God exists. I'll stand with you side by side and also refute these other false concepts of God as well. So if he says, where do you get your concept of God from? I think there's two ways. I mean, I think you might have to divert the topic and say, because I believe Islam is true, and then provide evidence for Islam. But you're out there trying to prove the existence of the Islamic concept of God, not just any God. Evolution. I want to try to go through this a little quickly. The things that this is very important, yet it could be a little scientific and boring at the same time. Because the thing is that almost every atheist, I don't know of any atheist that is an atheist and doesn't believe in evolution. So I think it's very important that you should know something about evolution if you're planning to enter into a discussion with an atheist. Now, do you guys know what evolution is? You guys know what evolution is? All right. Exactly. So you have organisms, you have living things coming from. You have a living being. You have an organism. The genetic structure in that organism changes. So out of that, a new organism comes. Now, there's something called natural selection, which nature will decide and choose which new organisms will live and prosper. Now, there are three main arguments against evolution, and I'm going to try to make it as simple as possible. But again, I'm saying if you guys are planning to take a discussion with atheists seriously, it's really good to read up on evolution. And I recommend Harun Yahya's website, harunyahya.com. He has excellent books refuting evolution. Now, three main refutations to evolution. First one, how did the first living cell emerge? Even if he could prove that evolution is true, that will not disprove the existence of God. I have no problem believing that God could have created the world through the process of evolution. But evolution does not answer the origin of life. They might tell you right now how one organism came from another, but evolution cannot answer how it all began. How can one living species turn into another? Is there any evidence in the fossil record that living things underwent such a process? Now, how did the first living cell emerge? Now, if you look at the cell on the right side, I'm not really into biology, but the thing is that if you study the complexity of the cell and you study the boundaries of the cell membrane and how it protects the inside of the cell, and you study the cytoskeleton and how all of them have functions which are so, and if you just understand the complexity of a cell, it's kind of like a very, very small city. And that it is so complex that you cannot just say, yeah, okay, the first cell just came out of nothing and then we can move on from there. It's not that easy. You see, Charles Darwin, who came up with the evolution theory, he said in his book that he cannot explain how it all began, but he was hoping that future discoveries might answer this. But he was wrong. They just simply cannot answer how the first cell came. And even an evolutionist scientist, he acknowledges the most elementary type of cell constitutes a mechanism unimaginably more complex than any machine yet thought up, let alone constructed by man. A cell is more complex than how a car works, how an airplane works, and yet none of us could possibly believe that these just came from nothing. So even if the guy says to you, I believe in evolution, you ask him, well, tell me how it all began. When did evolution start? Who made evolution start? Transformation of one species to another. I'm not going to, let me just summarize what all these quotations are. What all these quotes are saying is that when you're saying that the genetic structure in a living organism changes and another organism comes, it is almost never that it will change into something which is better or positive. Now, let me just give you an example. Now you see this, how many toes does he have? Okay, 9 toes, okay. Now this is the result of a mutation. What's a mutation? The mutation is the change in the genetic structure so that you could get a new organism, a new substance. For the genetic structure to change, the possibility of it changing in a way for something better and positive to come out of it is so high. It's ridiculous to believe that all of these animals and all this creation that we see just came up from that. So when you have a nuclear explosion, now the effects and harm of a nuclear explosion is not only the explosion itself, it's also the radiation that it leaves out. People in Japan today, in Nagasaki or Hiroshima, they're still getting affected by the nuclear bombs dropped by America around 60 years ago. Now, what does the radiation do? It changes the genetic structure in your body. So you might get a third eye popping out somewhere. You might get, I don't know, a hand popping out of your knee. Some weird stuff. But you don't have a nuclear explosion and then, I turn into Superman or something. Or I become 3 times stronger.
Spider-Man.
Or Spider-Man. That stuff is only in the cartoons. That stuff is not real. So what they're saying is that these mutations, the changes in the genetic structure, it will always have something negative, not positive as a result. But what they're saying is that all these genetic structures, I'm the result of a genetic structure from a previous species. I don't think I look that bad. But, okay, no, I'm joking. But what I'm saying is that the human beings today, we can't say we're the result of just this chance and change in negative structure. Now, what's interesting is this experiment that took place by some what some scientists tried to do is that they took a fly. They took a bunch of flies, and in a laboratory, they went to change the genetic structure of the fly in a way that can make the fly live longer. Flies usually don't live more than 3 days. Right? That's why I usually trap in my bathroom door and I was open after 3 days. But they usually don't live that long. So the experiment was to try to improve the life of the fly so it can live longer. And actually, the result of this experiment actually showed that when they played around with it, the legs came out of its eyes, the wings came out from the wrong place. They weren't able to make a superfly. They changed around its DNA structure and the flies just came out deformed, or they died right away. So imagine, you have a bunch of scientists in a closed library, in a closed laboratory, and they're giving the fly all the attention, and yet they can't get a better fly to come out of it.
Just more detail, they were trying to change the genetic disposition, so we're emitting some radiation, through radiation emission.
So the point is that this won't even work with under the supervision of all these scientists in a laboratory, but we're supposed to expect that it worked on all of us in an open system. And so we're all okay.
I have a question. What are your comments on this genetically engineered food and agriculture? Things that are supposed to be good for.
Well, I mean,
people, as they say.
Well, I'm not really knowledgeable with that stuff, but I just can't think of any living being that they have come up with. And they tried to do it with cows, and the cows came out deformed, and the cows died as well. So, but again, even if we were to assume, let's say after 100 years, 200 years, that in a laboratory they're able to do this, still, that won't convince me that it would work outside of the laboratory, under no supervision from any scientist or anyone. But the point I'm trying to make is that even in the laboratory, look at how difficult, look at the results. So how are we supposed to believe that outside of the laboratory? As where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, O ye folk, a parable struck out for you, so listen to it. Verily those on whom you call beside God could never create a fly if they all united together to do it. And if the fly should despoil them of what they ought, of what they could not snatch it away from it, weak is both the seeker and the sought. So I'm saying, people can't even create a fly. Now, we can't create a fly from nothing. That's what the verse is trying to say. But we're not even able to take an existing fly and make another fly out of that fly. So how are we going to meet the challenge of creating a fly from nothing? The fossil record refutes evolution. What evolutionists would agree to, and what people who argued against evolution is that what they're saying is this. How would evolutionists reply back to what we just said? We're saying the result will always be negative. You would always have someone deformed coming out. But they said, well, if it happens several times, you might get lucky and get a proper organism coming out. So let's say you have a whale, and from the whale you got a bird. All right. So what they're going to say is that through several attempts in the changing of the genetic structure, eventually it would work out. Even if it was 1,000,000 attempts, it would work out, and you finally get the bird. But what we're saying is this: is that okay, fine. Let's say that's the case. Where are all the deformed structures? Okay, now let's say a whale wanted to turn into a bird. Okay, so a genetic structure changed. So you probably have a whale with some wings. Okay, then you have a whale with 4 legs and feathers. So where are those fossils? We're supposed to find fossil records. We're supposed to have archaeological evidence about all of these deformed species that were supposed to have been a result of the change in genetic structure. Now, I'm gonna end evolution there. I'm just saying that it is very important to know about evolution, at least understand properly the 3 quick ways to refute evolution. And also remember that even if he was successful in proving evolution to be true, that will not answer the first argument we put, the Kalam cosmological argument. Evolution won't answer the origin of the universe.
Just
The next.
Obviously, you feel like an atheist and a Scientologist. Like Scientologists basically believe in science, right? Yeah, and but do they believe in no God? Do they believe that there is no God, or do they just basically believe in science?
Well, I mean, a lot of these people, they have in common, you have people called verificationists, empiricists, atheists, materialists. Well, all of them, I don't know about Scientologists, but what a lot of them do have in common is that we'll only believe in the material world and what my 5 senses could tell me, and what could be empirically proven. But I don't know if you were here in the beginning. The reason why we showed that this line of reasoning is weak is because there's also truth in the world which you cannot know through science, such as moral values. Science can't tell you that killing someone is wrong. It might be able to tell you if it's good for an experiment, but it can't tell you if killing that person is wrong. So science is not the only tool that we could use to know about all the truth in the world. And that's why the argument is weak. Now we're move on to argument from morality. And what the argument goes like this. Premise 1. If objective moral values do exist, then God exists. Premise 2. Objective moral values do exist. Conclusion, God exists. Now, we have to be very careful here. We're not saying that atheists do not have morals. If you say that, he's just going to walk away from you. Don't say that. Atheists know killing is wrong. Atheists know raping is wrong. Don't tell them you don't have morals. That's not what the argument is. We're not saying you have to believe in God in order to have morals. What we're saying is God must exist in order for you to have morals. Now, we know that objective moral values do exist. What do I mean by objective moral values exist? What I mean is that these are values that exist regardless of what anyone else has to say about it. So if we were to say Israel and America got together and they were successful in brainwashing the whole world that, can you turn it off please? And they were successful in brainwashing the whole world into believing, just press any button, thanks, and into believing that Israel is a state that should exist and they are right for oppressing the Palestinian people. Let's say they were successful in doing that. That doesn't change the fact that it is wrong. Objective moral values are values that are there regardless of what anyone has to say about them. And we know that these exist. Objective moral values do exist. We all know that killing an innocent baby is wrong. You don't have to know how you know that. We just know that. And the atheist would agree with you. But that's the thing. If you know that objective moral values do exist, that means you're saying that a moral law exists. If you're saying that a moral law exists, then that denotes that there is a moral lawgiver. The moral law couldn't have come from nowhere, couldn't have come from nothing. There must have been a moral lawgiver in order for there to be a moral law. But this moral lawgiver must be a moral agent. It cannot be amoral. Remember when we talked about moral, something that has no morality? We can't say that moral law came from a table or came from subatomic particles. These are not moral agents. It must have come from someone. The cause must have been a moral agent. And when we read the Quran, we know that it is Allah who is the source of our moral values. Allah said, by the soul in the proportion and order given to it, and inspired it with conscious of what is wrong for it and what is right for it. We know where we get these moral values from now. It comes from Allah. Yes. If you have a question about what I'm saying, ask it. If you want to add something, at the end. Tell me.
Can I ask?
Yes.
My question is, how would you respond to someone who says that the existing miracle came out of human experiences? You do not really need God to give you that. It was the human experience. They experienced killing, it was not good for them, then they knew that killing was not good. They experienced stealing, it was not good for them, then they knew stealing was not good.
Well, I would say then that would make the moral values to be subjective and not objective. If I'm going to define moral values through experience, then why don't we say that the Nazis were right? They felt good doing it. Do you know that at the trial at Nuremberg, they said they didn't do anything wrong according to their law. Their human experience, their intuitions, their beliefs said there is nothing wrong with taking all these Jews and gypsies and blacks and all these, and even Christians, and executing them in order to put forth their and to support their propaganda. That was their experience. That was their experience said, this is something good. We should do this. If we don't do it, it's actually bad. So if you're going to define moral values through personal experience, then that means it ceases to be objective. If the rapist says, I feel good raping a woman, then who are you to tell him that he is wrong? Okay, my experience says that's something bad, but his experience says, no, I had a good time doing it. What we're arguing is that objective moral values exist. What you're talking about would be subjective. And if that is the case, then we have no reason whatsoever to condemn anyone for committing a crime. And also, let's talk about this a little further. Thanks for bringing it up. Now, according to the atheistic worldview, we are nothing more than the natural byproduct of matter plus time plus chance. Meaning, matter, over some time, by chance, happened to create us. So we're just the natural byproducts of matter plus time plus chance. Just like a pig is a natural byproduct. Just like a cockroach is a natural byproduct. So who are you to say that human beings are better than cockroaches? Better than pigs? What makes you any different from them? If you want to say that you're better than them, then that's called speciesism, similar to racism. You're saying that your species of human beings is better than them, and you have no reason to say so. Now, let's say someone says, well, I know I'm superior to animals because I have intellect and they don't. Yeah, but who said that intellect is the criterion to decide that you are superior to them? A lion is stronger than me and can eat me up. Why can't I use that as a criterion and say a lion is superior to me? A cheetah could run faster than me. Why don't I use that as a criterion for it being superior to me? So who are we to say that we are superior to animals? And in the animal kingdom, rape happens all the time. Lions, the male lion will rape the female lion. But no one would say that the lion is immoral. A shark would forcibly copulate with a female shark. No one would say the shark committed a crime, handcuff him. Because that happens in the animal kingdom where moral laws do not exist. They exist with human beings. And we all know that that is the case. And if we all know that, then that means those are objective moral values. If you have objective moral values, you need to have that objective moral lawgiver. Who could it be besides Allah? No one. And the thing is that some atheists, they knew how destructive this argument is to them. Because when you read the writings of atheists, they cannot explain without God how we could have objective moral values. And I was listening to one Christian preacher, and he said how he gave this argument. And he said how he got an atheist after his lecture. And he asked the atheist, if I were to get a baby and a sword and chop up the baby into little pieces, would you say that this is wrong? And he knew. He said, yeah, I know this is wrong. Then that means he's saying that objective moral values exist. But what he said is, well, I don't like it. I won't like the idea, but I can't say that you did something wrong. You see the results of believing in atheism. If you believe in an atheistic worldview, you're forced to start believing in this. But we all know, even the atheist will tell you, I know that taking a little baby and stabbing it is wrong. But if you believe that means you have to believe in that moral lawgiver. This is Allah. Argument from instinct. This is the last argument, then we're going to take a little break. Yes?
What does the atheist think about life? I mean, life given by who makes us live like this?
Who makes
life.
us? What about life? I mean, what's my purpose in life?
No, the life itself.
How did life emerge from
gives
that?
life to us.
This is
How did life originate, or what does life
what
mean
makes
to
us
me?
live? What makes us live?
from inanimate matter to living things.
The soul.
Soul maybe.
They don't believe in the existence of a soul. They don't believe that you're required to have a soul to live. It's just, my blood circulating, my heart pumping blood into the rest of my body. They'll try to give you some scientific explanation for it. And I think they'll do a good job doing it. I think they'll give a good explanation. Why are you alive? Well, you see, your mom and dad got together, the sperm hit the egg, etc., blah, blah, blah. Over 9 months, you came out of your mom's stomach, and there you are. And you have oxygen in the air, it's good for your lungs, etc. But the point is, who are the first mother and father? Talk about the origin of life. Don't talk about the short-term perspective. If you do, you'll probably be successful in arguing back with you. Because in the short term, I could explain where I came from. I came from my parents. Where did they come from? Their parents. Go further back. Where did it all start? And that's what our first argument was. The origin of the universe. Now, this is the last argument. Then we're going to take a 15 to 20 minute break. The argument from instinct. Why do we behave the way we behave? Now, you see this. You guys know what a termite is, right? A termite is the insect itself, surprisingly, is blind. It can't see. And what these termites do is that they actually build, they make these 300, what's it called? Or 3 meter tall hills. And they make it, and I think they live in it, I don't know, I'm not good with biology, but they build these hills. And the interesting thing that these termites are blind. And people are baffled. How could termites who are blind, who cannot see, work in such perfect unity together in order to build this hill? So imagine you have 2,000 construction workers. You blindfold them. Okay, guys, build Burj Al Arab, for example. What is it that makes them behave and know that this is what they are supposed to do while they are blind? And another question is a question of self-sacrifice. Why would I sacrifice my life for you? I mean, if we're living in a world where it's survival of the fittest and there's no afterlife, I'm not going to be rewarded for myself. If I sacrifice myself for you, I'm just going to die. There's no afterlife. Why is there self-sacrifice in the world? Now, let me just read these out. The question is, why do living beings help one another? According to Darwin's theory of evolution, every animal is fighting for its own survival and the continuation of its species. Helping other creatures will decrease its own chances of surviving. And therefore, evolution should have eliminated this type of behavior, whereas we observe that animals can indeed behave selflessly. If evolution were true, and everyone's worried about himself, you wouldn't expect to see people, or animals even, sacrificing their lives for others. In recent years, research has revealed findings regarding self-sacrifice even in bacteria. These living things without brains or nervous systems, totally devoid of any capacity for thought, kill themselves to save other bacteria when they're invaded by viruses. This is just more examples. So why do we behave the way we do? Why do animals behave the way they do? Well, Allah said, "Your Lord revealed to the bees, build dwellings in the mountains and the trees, and also in the structures which men erect. Then eat from every kind of fruit and travel the paths of your Lord, which have been made easy for you to follow. From inside them comes a drink of varying colors, containing health for mankind. This is certainly a sign in that for people who reflect, how do the bees know what to do? Who is guiding them? Who taught them? Did they go to some bee school and some teaching them what to do? How did the first bee know what to do? Why do they behave that way? We know the answer from the Quran. Now, what we've done is that we gave 6 arguments. We talked about the origin of life. And we said that the universe is not eternal, that it was created. And it did come into existence by a cause, an eternal cause. But we said that that's not enough. We have to go further than that. We also showed from the argument of free agency that this eternal cause must have a free will. It's a personal agent. It's a free agent. It's not some mindless object. We went further and said that this cause is also an information provider. So it's not enough for the atheist to explain where matter came from. He also has to explain where information came from. We also talked about the argument from design. How things are so explicitly designed in the universe that if it wasn't like that, we wouldn't be able to live. And we showed that was ridiculous to believe that was only by a coincidence. To believe that it's a coincidence requires so much faith, which the atheists supposedly mock us for having. 5th, that our moral values come from this cause. This cause is also a moral being, a moral agent, a moral lawgiver. And finally, we also saw from the Quran that we know that we behave the way we behave because God inspired us to. And if there was no God, we wouldn't behave that way in a world where evolution and atheism is true. So I think these arguments are very good. They're very strong. They're definitely more logical than any arguments I believe atheists could offer. And I think that if you know them very well and enter into a discussion with an atheist, you would come out being the intellectual person. Well, what we're going to do now is that we're going to take a 15 to 20 minute break, have some snacks, clear our heads from all the boring science I gave you, and then we're going to come back and we're going to discuss 9 atheist arguments, 9 atheist questions that they have. And I'm going to divide you guys up into groups, assign a question to each one, give you guys like 10 minutes to figure out the answer, try your best to answer it, and then at the end I'll give you guys the answers and we'll just interact more and then we'll just all go home. But before that, anyone has any questions about what I just talked about?
I know, like, we know that we're born Muslims by instinct from Hadith.
Fitra, okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, what if, like, an atheist argues that if Allah created us, why didn't He create us all Muslims? I mean, like by instinct we are.
I don't want to answer that now because that's one of the questions. Okay.
Later, coming soon.
Coming soon, all right. In the theater near you. Okay. Any question? Yeah.
Just a comment on the arguments from instinct. I mean, if you go back in time, let's say that there is a certain species, certain creature. If the first creature was not equipped by all that it needs in order to survive, it wouldn't have survived. For example, if the first ants or termites or bees were not, let's say, programmed to know how should they survive, how should they gather the food, etc., they wouldn't have survived. It couldn't have come from experience, trial and error, because if it would be like
the first one would have died right away.
There's no chance for survival. Yeah, so the argument is as simple as that.
Exactly. I mean, you can't expect to get a kid, dump them on the streets. You just expect them to learn how to live solely by himself. A baby doesn't know it has to eat. You have to tell it to eat. Just leave someone to learn it completely by itself. It's not possible. Everyone has to be taught. Program. Yeah.
Can I add on the theory of evolution? One argument says if theory of evolution is true, say a human comes from a monkey, we still have monkeys around, but where are the monkeys?
That's a weak argument, to tell you the truth. If you want to get scientific into it, because first of all, a lot of people misunderstand when they say human beings came from monkeys. That's not what evolutionists say. Evolutionists say that monkeys and human beings came from the same source. But doesn't mean we actually came from monkeys. So a lot of people have stopped using this argument. I wouldn't advise you to use that argument. Any other questions? Okay, yeah, sure.
question about the morals, isn't it? Society, morals kind of change over history. Society creates morals as opposed to individuals.
But that's the problem. If a society creates morals, then morals are subjective from society to society. Do you know, there's a philosopher, his name is Peter Haas, and he had a book called Morality After Auschwitz. And he's talking about the Holocaust. And he said, there's no way you could critique or condemn the Nazis because their beliefs are internally consistent. As a society, they developed a new ethic, a new moral code, which said that executing Jews and gypsies is actually morally good. So if moral values are created through society, by societies, and that means it is subjective from society to society. That means there is no objective moral values in the world then. So that's the thing. I mean, how can I condemn the Nazis then? I can't condemn them by saying, well, my society says so. They don't care. Their society said something else. The point that I'm trying to make is that even if the Nazis succeeded in World War II and dominated the world, that will not change the fact that what they're doing is wrong, or what they did is wrong, that their beliefs are wrong. Or it's saying that objective moral values exist, and they are there regardless of what anyone has to say about it. So God forbid, what if we were to have a society that were to decide one day, let's kill all the old people from age 70 and above because they're not productive, they don't work, they're just wasting taxpayer money, let's kill them.
The Eskimos do that.
You know what I mean? So then if it reaches that state, then how are we going to condemn them?
Well, that's multiple societies mean that you're not going to get that situation. If you have just one society preaching this kind of one ideology, then you're not going to get the arguments against that ideology. Yeah,
but what if we... Well, I don't think that's ever possible. So I'll think of a new argument when that happens. I don't think that's possible. I don't think that all human beings are... I believe that there are a lot of sinful human beings in the world. And I don't think it would ever be possible that all of us are going to be so morally good. And I think if that world ever came, I don't think I'll have to stand here arguing for the existence of God. Because I would always believe that if someone did not believe in God, I think, and then who is he getting his moral values from? I don't know. I can't imagine that happening. I just can't imagine that happening. I mean, if I think about the Netherlands and how they completely have no problem whatsoever with allowing marijuana to be smoked in public, then how am I going to condemn them if I don't have this objective standard which is transcendent upon all human beings? I, as a Muslim, I don't think I'll find it moral for allowing a woman to walk with a miniskirt. I'm not saying, hey, I'm going to impose my views upon you. I'm just saying that's the way I am. I just think that it is wrong. I don't think the day will ever come where all Muslims will think it's okay. And I don't think the day will ever come where all non-Muslims will agree with us and say, yeah, all women should wear hijab. So I just don't... I'm just kind of saying that worldview, that everyone's going to agree on the same thing, is a kind of utopia which will never happen. So that's why I won't take that seriously, if you know what I mean. I just don't think it will ever happen that all human beings can form the same morals. It just can't happen.
That's fine. So having an ultimate moral, it's kind of impossible because there are so many different societies with different morals. So you might have Indians in South America who believe in, it might be infanticide, it might be going around naked, it might be whatever. And then you have societies in Western society who think that's wrong because of their societal norms.
Yeah.
Can you just hold the thought? There's a black Renault blocking one of the neighbor's cars, so please can you move it? So,
A black Renault.
yeah, black small Renault, as far as the neighbor is saying.
Did anyone park his black car right in front of the neighbors? No one?
Yeah, because he could call the police.
Yeah. Are you sure? No one has a black car. Okay, let's narrow it down. Who has a black car?
Turn off the light.
Where is it? I don't know. It's a what?
No, it has to be from here. Could be. Are you guys absolutely sure no one has a black car? No?
Okay. Just a small note. Please do not block the neighbor's cars. You can. There's a parking space just behind
The sand area.
center. It's a sandy area. So
Okay.
It's a Renault.
Yeah. It's a. Do you have a?
No.
Okay.
I'm very far.
Okay. All right.
It's not far.
Okay. So. Okay, guys. All right. So what you're saying is that moral values are different from society to society. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
I would agree with that, but how would that be relevant to the argument? I would say that objective moral values do exist, and
But
some.
because of societies are formed because of a kind of helping each other basically is beneficial for it's a symbiotic relationship between people who helps people survive.
Okay, I think you're confusing between moral values and prudential values. Prudential values means it is necessary to do this in order for the result to occur. Meaning, for example, it is necessary to expose the plant to sunlight in order for the plant to grow. Similarly, some people argue it is necessary for human beings to flourish in order for human beings have to be moral to each other, have to be moral in order for human beings to flourish. Now, that doesn't mean I'm under a moral obligation to do that. Now, for example, the Nazis, what their goal and determination was is that their views will flourish, and that they would ensure, in order to ensure that would happen, they went and executed the Gypsies and the Jews, etc. So that might be prudential values, and a question is, why would I want all human beings to flourish? I might want my particular race to flourish. So if you don't have that objective moral law, how would you then be able to condemn them? If we're going to say that societies create ethics for themselves, I don't know how I could stand here and condemn the Nazi regime.
Sorry to interrupt again. It turned out to be a black Golf.
A black wolf?
Yeah. No one has a black Golf? Okay, so.
Okay. No black wolf. Okay. All right. Okay. So, so where does the argument then lie? The argument lies is this: that we know that objective moral values do exist. We know what the Nazis did was wrong, and I'm saying that without a moral lawgiver, you don't have a moral law. You don't have an objective moral law. Therefore, you can't stand here and condemn the Nazi regime. But because we know there's a moral law, we could stand here and do that. And I'm saying that that moral law could not have come from societies or whatever, because then it won't be objective, it would be subjective. But we know that there's an objective moral law. And objective moral laws could not have come from from divergent societies, because everyone could just create his own